If poverty was a man, his name would be Sentongo, because everything about him, the way he walked, the way he talked, the way he dressed, even the way he reasoned, carried a full signature of luck. Yet, he wore it like a title. Sentongo was in his late 30s, with a kind of lean flame you might mistake for a healthy living until you notice his light, bent shoulders. Not from humility, but from years of carrying the weight of life without a single cushion of comfort. His dark skin wasn't from choice sunbathing or outdoor hobbies. It was a permanent tattoo of a man who had no car, no office job, and no shade except the mango tree in his compound. And yet, his eyes carried that annoying mixture of pride and defiance, as if to tell the world, I'm not ashamed of my condition. In fact, I celebrate it. Sentongo lived in a one-room apartment whose walls had faded into a color of an old newspaper. The zinc roof had so many patches of different colors that if viewed from above, it resembled a purely swaying patchwork. And when it rained, the roof sang different pitches. And Sentongo liked to boast that no rich man's house could give such free live music. His bed was pushed against the wall under the only window he had. Owning a fan was next year's dream. His prized possession was a plastic chair with cracked back seat, which he could introduce to visitors as an important Italian design, while kneeling on it carefully so it couldn't break under him. To know Sentongo was to know a man who had convinced himself that poverty was the highest form of righteousness. He wasn't bitter at life. He simply decided that instead of chasing wealth, which he believed was full of trouble, he would marry poverty and remain faithful to her until death. Raised in a home where his father never trusted any man who owned more than 2 shirts, and his mother believed ambitions was dangerous spirit, Sentongo's mind was shaped early. His father always said, "Rich people do not sleep well at night," and his mother would add, "People with money forgot God quickly." These words planted seed in him that he would grow into the tree that shaded his entire adulthood. In the village where Sentongo grew up, owning a radio was a mark of wealth, and going to secondary school made you a local celebrity. Sentongo had achieved both. His father had bought a small battery-powered radio that could only catch 2 stations, and he himself had completed Senior 4. This made him the most educated man in his father's clan. But instead of using his certificate to hunt for a job in Kampala, he stayed back in the village, helping his father on the banana plantation and occasionally reading old newspapers out loud to the elders under the mango tree at the trading center. To them, he was a walking Google, if Google only had 210 information. After his father passing away, Sentongo's mother encouraged him to try the city. "Kampala has so many roads. Maybe one will lead you to bread," she said, pressing transport money into his hand. He took the bus with a small suitcase, 2 shirts, 1 pair of trousers, and his treasured radio. But Kampala had no respect for certificates that were 10 years old. Jobs after job slipped through his fingers like groundnut shell in a child's hand. He found himself settling in a small room in the outskirts of Chireka, surviving on casual work and occasional generosity of friends. Over time, he became a chairman of a certain monk tree in front of his rented room, where he and fellow poverty friends would gather daily for a long discussion about politics, football, and how to survive without ambition. The monk tree was more than a shed. It was an institution. Under its branches, Sentongo was the pastor of Poverty International Ministry. His sermons were always the same. Brethren, those who chase money chase trouble. Those who remain with nothing remain with peace. Look at me. Do I have ulcers? No, because poverty has no pressure. His congregation consisted of 5 royal friends. Waiswa, the carpenter with no customers. Bukenya, the boda rider whose bike was always in the garage. Kato, a self-proclaimed poet. And the twins' brother, Musa and Sebaduka, who would sell airtime only when they have capital. From morning till evening, they would sit under the monk tree, watching people go to work and come back exhausted. Sentongo would point at the sweaty office workers and say, "See, that's what greedy does to you." The others would nod in agreement. Yet deep down, sometimes when everyone had gone, Sentongo would stare at the road and wonder if maybe, just maybe, his father had been wrong. Because every once in a while, a shiny car would pass by, music playing, driver smiling. He would feel a small pinch in his chest. But like a true pastor, he quickly rebuked it. "Get behind me, temptation." Under the monk tree took an expected turn when Salongo Kagwa, the old childhood friend, returned from Dubai. Salongo had left the village years ago with nothing but a suitcase and a prayer. Now he returned with a belly full of pilau and pockets full of stories. He came to visit Sentongo one sunny afternoon, stepping out of a shiny Toyota Harrier. The monk tree congregation fell silent. This was not just a return, it was a statement. Salongo hugged Sentongo warmly and laughed. "Hey, my brother, you've not changed at all. Even this chair is the same one from 2024. They sat together and Salongo began to share tales of the desert, the skyscrapers, and the money he had made. Sentongo listened with a mix of awe and discomfort. For the first time in years, he didn't feel like the richest man under the monk tree. Then the moment that would stick in his mind for nights. Salongo looked him in the eyes and said, "Sentongo, my brother, the world is big than this tree. Poverty is not a bondage of honor. It is a thief. It has stolen your time." Sentongo laughed it off in front of everyone, but that night, lying on his thin mattress, he could not sleep. Those words played in his head like an welcome song. It was a quiet afternoon under the monk tree when Sentongo's phone rang. It was his cousin from the village. The voice on the other end was heavy. "Sentong, Mama is not well." At first, he brushed it off. His mother was a strong woman, the kind who walked 5 miles with a sack of cassava on her head and still scolded you for being lazy. But his cousin continued. The words, hospital, serious, and the money began to sink in. He ended the call and sat in silence. His friends tried to cheer him up with jokes, but laughter fell hollow. That night, Sentongo lay awake, staring at the cracked ceiling. For the first time, poverty didn't feel peaceful. It felt cruel. The next morning, Sentongo counted his savings, a grand total of 17,000 shillings, some of it in coins. The hospital bills were already over 300 Ugandan shillings. he thought of selling his radio, but who buys a radio with one speaker missing? Reluctantly, he went to his friends under the mango tree, a hat in his hand. "Brethren, my mother is sick, I need your help." The response came with sad shakes of their heads. I'll give you, but I've just paid rent. Even me, the landlord took my last coin. For the first time, the mango tree offered him no comfort. It was then he remembered Sentongo's words. Poverty is a thief. It has stolen your time. Now it was stealing his mother's health too. Swallowing his pride, Sentongo called Sentongo. His friend picked on the first ring. "Brother, I need a favor," Sentongo began, voice trembling. "My mother, she's in the hospital. I need to raise money fast." Without hesitation, Sentongo transferred the money and told him, "Go take care of her. But Sentongo, when this is over, we must talk. Your life cannot remain like this." Sentongo traveled to the village the same day. Seeing his mother in the hospital broke something inside him. She smiled weakly and whispered, "My son, you came." In that moment, he vowed silently, "If she recovers, I'll change my life." Weeks later, after his mother was discharged back home, Sentongo returned to Kampala. He found Sentongo waiting for him, seated under the mango tree with other members. But this time, Sentongo came with a different agenda. "Sentongo, I'm starting a small construction supply business. I need someone I can trust to manage part of it. The pay is not huge, but it's a start." The mango tree congregation looked shocked. "Sentongo, working?" But Sentongo pressed on. "Brother, I'm not giving you a job, I'm giving you a ladder. Whether you climb it or not, it's up to you." Sentongo looked at the faces around him, men who sat in the same place for years, waiting for miracles that never came. He thought of his mother's smile, he thought of a long night of hunger, then almostly said, "Alright, I'll try." It was the first crack in the walls of his comfort zone. On the first day at the construction supply yard, Sentongo realized something shocking. Work started at 7 a.m., not when the sun is comfortable. But by the time he arrived at 8:15, Sentongo was waiting with folded arms. "My brother, if you want to eat from the table, you must arrive before the food," he said firmly. The work was not glamorous. Sentongo carried cement bags, arranged iron sheets, and clean tools. His arms itched, and the dust filled his clothes. At midday, he was ready to quit, but he remembered his mother's hospital bed and decided to endure. That evening, as he counted his small but honest pay, he felt a strange pride. It was different from a lazy piece of the mango tree. It was pride with sweat on it. Weeks passed. Sentongo got used to waking up early and earning money, but the mango tree was still there, whispering old comfort. One Saturday, he got his pay and decided to just bypass to greet his friends. The greeting turned into laughter, laughter into beers, and beers into spending half of his salary in one afternoon. By evening, he felt the same hollow guilt he used to ignore. When he told Sentongo what had happened, his friend shook his head. "You can't serve two masters, my brother. Either you are building your life or you are building your excuses." Those words burned into Sentongo's chest the whole day. He realized the truth. The mango tree wasn't just a place, it was a trap, and every verse pulled him closer to the man he used to be. It was a quiet afternoon at the supply yard. The sun hung heavily in the sky, and the air smelled cementy dust and hot metal. Sentongo was stacking iron sheets when a man in a dust blue overall walked in, his phone pressed on his ear. "I need 50 bags of cement delivered tomorrow morning," the man said, speaking fast. "But Sentongo is not picking my calls. Are you in charge here?" Sentongo hesitated. Salongo stepped out, but maybe I can help. The man frowned. This is urgent. If you can't handle it, I can go somewhere else. Something in Sentongo's heart stirred, a mixture of fear and determination. He wiped his hand, pulled out the order book and asked the man to repeat the details. He checked the stockroom, counted the bags and even called the driver himself to confirm the availability. By the time the man left, the order was locked in, the delivery arranged and the payment scheduled. The next morning, everything went smoothly. The truck left on time and the contractor received full delivery without a single bag missing. That afternoon, the man called. You handled it well. From now on, I'll be coming to you directly for my orders. When Salongo returned later and heard what had happened, he stopped mid-step and looked at Sentongo with surprise. You mean you managed the whole order yourself? Sentongo nodded quietly. Salongo smiled, patting his shoulder. My brother, you are not just an employee anymore. You are becoming a man of value. That night, Sentongo walked past the mango tree without even looking at it. The laughter under its branches sounded small now, too small for the man he was becoming. It was a warm Friday evening when Sentongo decided to take a long road home. His path led him past the mango tree. This time, he didn't avoid it. The old crew was there, Paul, Jimmy, and other two, bottles in their hands, voices louder with a kind of confidence that comes from too much beer. Hey, look who is here, Paul called out. The big man of cement. Come, have a seat. Sentongo smiled faintly, but didn't sit. I came to tell you something, he began, his voice calm. Hey, this one talks like a pastor now, Jimmy joked, and the group laughed. But Sentongo didn't. My brothers, we've sat under these tree for years. Talking about life is unfair. I used to believe it too, but now I know life doesn't change when you talk. It changes when you move. Laughter faded. Paul leaned back. So, you're now better than us? No, Sentongo said. I'm not better. I'm just tired of watching the years pass without anything to show. I still respect you, but I can't stay here. This tree gives shade, yes, but it also gives excuses. He turned and walked away, leaving behind the sound of silence, the kind of silence that comes when the truth stings but can't be denied. Weeks later, Salongo approached Sentongo with a proposal. I've been thinking, he said. I want to open a second branch of supply yard in Chengela, but I can't be in two places at once. I want you to manage it. Sentongo's heart pounded. Manage a whole branch? Yes, Salongo replied. You've proven you can handle responsibility. You deal with customers well, you think fast and you work hard. You get better salary and a small percentage of profits. The first few weeks were tough. New customers to win over, stock to organize, suppliers to negotiate with, but every evening when Salongo locked up the store and counted the days still, he felt a deep satisfaction. He no longer thought about the mango tree. The voices of his old friends had been replaced with the voice of customers thanking him, workers looking up to him for guidance. Months later, one Sunday afternoon, Sentongo passed by the mango tree again. This time, he stopped, not to join but to plant. In a small open space beside his new shop, he dug a hole and planted a young mango seedling. A curious customer asked, "Why here?" Sentongo smiled. This tree will give shade to people working, not people wasting time. When it grows, children will play under it, not men complaining about life. The seedling stood small and fragile, but it was a symbol of growth, of new beginning, of truth that a man's life is shaped by where he chooses to sit. Sentongo never went back to the old mango tree, but sometimes when the wind was just right, he would hear faint laughter from that direction. He didn't hate it. He just knew his shade now came from a different kind of tree. The environment you choose will either water your dreams or drain them. Shade can be comfort, but if it keeps you from the sun you need to grow, it becomes a prison. Choose your shade wisely. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for stopping by. Kindly subscribe if not yet subscribed to this channel and leave something in the comment section. Bye bye. I love you all. See you in the next one.